2.2 brought so many cool and awesome things to the game, like the new pixel blocks, shaders, keyframes, the swing, which is super overhated by the way, and many, many more. However, one of the biggest things we got in 2.2 was the camera triggers, a feature Geometry Dash has been starved of for way too long, but there's one question that still remains. How do you even use them? I know 2.2 came out a while ago, but I say better late than never because I'll teach you how to use every single one of them. We're starting out basic because this is quite literally one of the easiest triggers in the entire editor. You bump the number up to zoom in and lower the number to zoom out. Pick the duration of time you want it to take and the easing you want to use. Set it to touch or spawn trigger if you want to, and you're all set. I described the duration, easing, touch, and spawn triggers in my move trigger video, so if you need help with those, go check out that video. When you want the camera to go back to the default zoom, copy and paste the trigger and set the zoom value to 1. I genuinely don't need any more information, like that's it. The big top really simplified it well, huh? This camera trigger may look intimidating at first, but once you know what you're doing, it's an absolute breeze. First, set an object as a group ID. If you don't know how to do that, go watch my move trigger tutorial, I explained it in great detail. Once you have the group ID, plop it into the target group ID box, and this will make the camera look straight at the object you set it to. Just make sure you aren't using more than one object as the group ID, or the trigger will break. If you want the object to move, but you also want the camera to move with it, check the follow box. If you only want the camera to target the object on either the X or Y value, check those boxes as well. You can set the duration and the easing just like in the zoom trigger, and you can also set it to spawn trigger and touch trigger. Once you want the camera to stop targeting the object, the easiest way to do it is to copy and paste the trigger and select exit static on the copy trigger, and if you want it to exit instantly, check that box as well. This one's really easy as well. Say you want the camera to be slightly higher than usual. You can set the offset Y value to anything above 0, and then just try out different numbers until something works. This trigger is a lifesaver for parts where the gameplay is rising, since you can make the camera shift upwards so you can still see the level ahead of you. The offset X value is exactly the same, just with left and right. Of course, you can set the duration and easing and the touch/spawn triggers, and make sure when you want the camera to go back to normal, you set the X and Y values back to 0. After that, you're all set. Okay, gonna be honest, I genuinely have no clue what this trigger does. It seems to be exactly the same as the normal offset trigger, but more confusing. And also, no matter how much testing I did, I just couldn't get the offset Y value to work. It's just so weird. In any case, just use an offset trigger and I can guarantee you'll be fine. Oh god, this one. Just a disclosure, not every single level needs camera rotations. In fact, most of them don't. I'm sick of seeing levels that just have this trigger because it's cool and not because the level needs it. Anyways, this one is especially easy because it's just the normal rotate trigger but easier because there's no group IDs involved. Set the amount of degrees you want the trigger to rotate out of 360, and honestly, you should be all set. Just make sure that when you want the camera to go back to normal rotation, copy and paste the trigger and set the degrees to 0. Honestly, I've never had to use these add and snap 360 values, so I don't think you'll need to either. Set the move time, easing, touch and spawn trigger, blah blah blah, that's literally it. This is probably the one I use the least besides gameplay offset since it's literally useless, but that doesn't make it hard. Anyways, this trigger will set the camera's edge to a specific object. So say you want the camera to move, but you don't want it to go higher than a certain point. You'd place an object at that certain point, give it a group ID, then plug it into the trigger and select up. Now the camera can't move past this point. This is especially good for platformer mode, which is probably why I never use it, because platformer mode barely exists in my mind. When you want the camera to stop edging, copy and paste the trigger and click unlock, and make sure the direction you want to unlock is correct. This is definitely, by far, the easiest trigger in this entire video, but that's because it can only really be used in one situation. Say you want the level to start as a ship, but you want it to be in free flying mode. Instead of placing a portal, you could place the mode trigger, then set it to free mode, and voila! You could also do this in the middle of a flying part, but I don't see why you would. Overall, I don't really know why you'd ever use this trigger, but I can see it coming in handy like once. This one's really useful for creators, but I feel like I've always used it wrong, so bear with me. Honestly, I truly don't know what this trigger does in the actual level, but it is good in the editor. The green border that appears is the default size of a screen, and the orange lines are the size screen that you have. This is great for making sure that your level isn't too far in or out of frame, but I really don't know how to use it when you're actually in the level. I've done a lot of testing and it just doesn't really do anything, so I'm not too sure how to use this one, but I think it's mostly an editor only thing. And that's all for this video, an almost complete guide on how to make the camera do cool stuff. If you like this tutorial or me, then you could always subscribe. It's not like it'll take anything more than 3 seconds out of your day after all. Also, thanks so much for 250 subscribers. This is the amount of demons I had when I beat my first extreme demon, and it's so surreal to see that I've jumped to that number in subscribers in such a short amount of time. I hope you all now understand how the camera triggers work, except for gameplay offset and guide, but honestly, as long as we're together on that, we'll be fine. Thank you, and have a great day.
Secret Razor Z, out. Peace.
Geometry Dash.